Broadcasting from the KC Coyote Studios, you're listening to Kearney Live on 102.7 KPGZ. Kearney Live is presented by Kearney Trust Company. Kearney Trust, 310 West 92 Highway in Kearney. The phone number is 816-628-6666. And now here's the hosts of Kearney Live, Mike Davis and Jim Dickerson.
And happy Wednesday. There's the studio audience. I think this sounds like there's might be one or two more people than there was last time. I don't know, Brian. What do you think? Yeah, he's shaking his head, yes. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, folks. I am your host, Mike Davis, along with Jim Dickerson. And you heard his voice. You might have heard a whisper of his voice, as Mike is not on today. But Brian Watts, our producer, engineer, general manager, all-round helpful guy, the hardest, smartest, the guy in Kearney that everybody knows, he doesn't have to buy drinks, he doesn't have to buy dinner, because everybody buys those things for him. He's that popular. Brian Watts, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We love him. And I might point out that I think for the first time in a couple of weeks, I have my sidekick and co-host, Jim Dickerson, with me right here in studio. We're both here together. It's live, Kearney Live. Welcome to the show, Jim. Glad you're here.
It's good to be back. Actually, I understand.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
He is. That's very true. Very true.
Certainly no doubt about that. Jim will be the first to tell you.
No, the funny thing was I was here last week. You were gone because you were down kayaking in the wonderful world of Arkansas.
Love it. Northwest Arkansas. We were on Beaver Lake. Yep. And one of the most beautiful campgrounds I think I've ever seen. It's Indian Creek Campground. If you're interested, take a 4-hour trip from Kansas City down there and spend some wonderful time in Northwest Arkansas.
So, but no, you're right. This is the first time we've been back together since probably almost a month.
I know, but it's crazy.
Here's the interesting thing, and I know you were going to talk about this. We are going to be together for the next 3 days because we have a lot of stuff going on.
Talk about that.
I was going to say, for those of you who've been following, it's football season in Kearney, so we're getting ready to do, we've got the Coach Gray show tomorrow, and then we have, of course, the game on Friday. So we're looking forward to getting back out there, and we'll be there with the new stadium, and we'll be there with the new press box and all that. So really looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Coach Gray will be on live at noon tomorrow. So this time tomorrow, we'll be in studio with the coach, and it will be simulcast on Facebook Live. So if you have questions, think about them now and type them up and send them to us while the coach is here. And I can guarantee you he'll answer them. Ask him about the quarterback. Well, he might not answer that one.
Actually, I'm going to ask him about the quarterback if you don't.
I don't think there's been an announcement made yet, but if there has, I sure haven't heard about it. So in any case, we've got a really, really exciting show today. And I don't often say that because, I can't make any promises, but I think today I can actually make that promise. Jim, what do you think?
I think so. Before we get started, there were a couple of things I wanted to cover. I know you had a couple of things too.
Yeah.
Number one was I wanted to give a little shout out to the missus, my wife. If you're watching on Facebook Live, you can actually see it. Over the weekend, she did what's called the Pikes Peak Ascent, and that's out in Colorado, Pikes Peak, as you might imagine. And what they did was they do kind of a trail run type thing all the way to the top, 14,100 and some feet.
That's crazy.
It's one of those things, and there you can see on the video, there was a picture of her there. And that there she is there. And then the trail is it's not like running up a road. It's actually a hiking trail.
In the
and you got
backcountry.
Switchbacks and all that.
Yeah.
Now, she did that. She finished that. While she was about halfway up the mountain, we've calculated that I was about 20 minutes into my mid-morning nap. So we got that going for me. And then also two other friends of ours, actually three, Kara Mays, who's in the pictures that you saw there with Sarah, they did the ascent, and then Kara's husband, Matt Mays, and Brad Gardner did the full, which is where they go all the way up and all the way down.
26.2, right? I think
it's not. I don't think
quite
it's
a marathon.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite a marathon, but you're going up in the elevation. You're going all the way up, and then you're coming all the way back down. So,
right.
hats off to them.
Oh, congratulations, Sarah.
Things that I would not do, or you're going to never see me do, that happened there. So congratulations to them.
Well
Great
done.
job on that. And she said, I'm never doing that again. And that's good because I'm never doing it. So we got that going
well,
for
at least one person in the family can do it. And so you've marked it off the list. And, as far as the family goes.
Yeah, we'll consider that done.
Right. Absolutely. And while Brian was showing images there on screen, I think it's pretty cool that we can do that. Actually, that Brian can do that. I don't think I would know where to begin with it, but nice job, Brian. I would like to mention that there is now another way to reach the radio station online. You may be familiar with 102.7 FM Rocks. Sorry, 102.7 FM Rocks. Don't use that point. I should know that by now. 102.7 FM.rocks works just fine, and you can continue using that. But because we love Kearney so much, we have a new URL, a domain name, 1027KearneyMo.com. That will get you right to our website, and Brian's got a picture of it up on the screen right now, as you can see there. And we're pretty happy about that because we love the people of Kearney, Missouri.
And yeah, that's going to be another great way to get to the website. So like Mike said, the other one still works. You can also get to the Bulldog Radio Network through the same way. Those are all there and available for you. And then, of course, you can go to the sponsors page and see all the sponsors that sponsor this program and the radio station as a whole. And if you want to be a sponsor, as always, you can get a hold of Brian over at the station.
And, Jim, I would like to, as you're speaking of those sponsors, we have some very special sponsors that have picked up time from us during the broadcasts of the Kearney Bulldog football games. We can't do that. None of this stuff comes free. And everybody, all these folks here in town, the businesses who help sponsor the radio station and certain shows like this very show, Kearney Trust Company is the flagship sponsor of Kearney Live. And I would also like to give some credit, a little shout out to Singleton and Son Excavating, Stables Restaurant there, Bar and Grill, wonderful place to eat and have a little beverage. TDR Auto Plaza, Porter's Building Center, First Missouri Bank, Porter's Kearney Body Shop, Tracy Tucker State Farm. We love Tracy. We love all the things she does for the community. KC Coyote. We are in the KC Coyote studio, and Tony and all of his folks downstairs are instrumental in getting our signal up on his antenna so that you can hear us. Mike Davis Creative Services, Liberty Hospital, this is always hard for me to say, Platt Clay Electric, that's a tongue twister, and 102.7 FM, and Kearney Chamber of Commerce. Thanks so much to the Kearney Chamber of Commerce for stepping up this year and helping us with our football broadcast. Thanks so much to all of you. Thanks to everybody, all of the businesses in Kearney, Missouri, who help us here at 102.7 to continue to be a part of your community experience. Jim, what do you think? Shall we introduce our guests?
I think so. As always, we try to keep things a little lively here. But for those of you who are out and about today and have been following us on Facebook Live, you probably noticed that there was a helicopter that landed. Now, that was not the way I used to get up here. Most normal people, we drive our car and we park in the parking lot. But some people that you're about to meet feel like they're a little more special than everybody else, and they flew their helicopter in. We have with us today Gregg Bourdon, who is the pilot of SkyTracker 41, and we've got to say this right, SkyTracker 41 and News Chopper5, correct?
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
Nailed it.
And then with him, from Kearney, Missouri, is the photographer, the guy who does all the video in the back, Paul Stokes.
Woohoo!
So a lot of you might recognize Paul. Guys, thanks for being with us today. It's good to have you up here.
Absolutely.
So, Gregg, let's start with you, and because I know there's a lot of people that have question about there's one helicopter but two stations. So rather than me try and explain it, why don't you try and explain it?
So at one time, Channel 5 had their own helicopter. So that goes back now about 6 years. In fact, you guys may remember there was a time when all four networks in Kansas City, so 5, 41, 9, and Fox 4, all had their own helicopter.
Right.
There's some economy issues there. Channel 5 and Channel 41 got together and said, we're basically shooting the same stuff. Let's just get together with this. So we've been merged now for, I think, about 8 years. We've been shooting it together.
Very good.
So when you do the video, obviously depending on which station you're watching, the graphic comes across that it's 5 or 41. How do you do the vocal part of it? Because I know there's certain times that you're talking on certain stations. How do you guys handle that?
So I'm a reporter for Channel 41. So that's, in a way, I'm going to say it's a little bit of our primary because that is what we do voice for. Our deal with Channel 5 is we provide them with video. So if we're out storm chasing, we're doing a police chase, anything that we're doing, we're making that feed to the tower, and then they both take it and pick it up and do whatever they're going to do for their broadcast. In that sense, it's totally independent. Now, voice-wise, I only do that for Channel 41, so it's a little bit easier because I don't have to concern myself with trying to go back and forth between two different stations.
Right.
So it works pretty seamlessly. Like I said, we've been doing it a long time, and we've got it nailed down, I think.
So do they call you and each station call and say, hey, we'd like a shot of this or we'd like a shot of that, or how does that work?
Well, our agreement with them is either station can call us with breaking news, and anything that we respond to breaking news wise, they're both entitled to it. So regardless of which station it comes from, we launch the helicopter usually within about 5 minutes. And of course, we're at the downtown airport. So that's why people will generally notice that we get the things pretty fast. We get that comment a lot. So whichever station calls us, we launch, and both of them pick it up.
Right. So you're flying the aircraft, and meantime, Paul Stokes is in the back. Is that right, Paul?
Yes,
and,
sir.
You're shooting the video, which is really a critical property at some point for the radio or for the television station.
For television.
That's usually
yeah.
what they're after. Yeah.
Right. Exactly right. And now, are you bouncing around when you're up there? Tell me really, how does that work? How do you get such amazing footage? Because I've seen some of it, and there's lots of people. There's people being chased by police and all kinds of crazy things and tornadoes. How do you settle down and make sure that you get nice, clean, smooth footage?
So a lot of it is, it's just getting used to your equipment. A lot of the stuff in the helicopter is pretty unique to running a camera in a helicopter. So it takes a little bit of time to get used to it, but having a pilot like Gregg makes things really easy because, not to get into it too much, but anytime the helicopter changes directions or changes speed in a certain direction, it changes what I'm doing following, say, a police chase or keeping the camera centered on a building. And the unique part about running a camera in a helicopter is you're usually shooting something on the ground that's either stationary or moving, but then the camera that you're shooting with is moving in an XYZ axis differently from what you're shooting as well. So there's a little bit of a challenge getting all of those things coordinated together to actually get a decent shot out of it. So.
Now, the camera is on the front of the aircraft. That's that big white apparatus that I saw underneath the nose.
Yes, sir.
And so that has the ability from where you are, I should say you have the ability to move the camera in different directions, as you say, XYZ coordinates to make sure that you're spot on to the subject matter down below.
Yeah. So the lens and the gyroscope, or the gyros that stabilize the camera, so we're not literally just bouncing around. Those are all nose mounted. And then the camera body itself that the lens transmits that video signal to is actually in the back of the helicopter in the baggage compartment.
Oh, wow. How about
so,
that? Yeah.
Everything that I do, I have a control panel that I use that sits on my lap in the back seat of the helicopter. Everything I do controls that lens in the front. So I have a joystick that I can move left, right, up, down. And I also have drift knobs that I can set a speed in either a horizontal or vertical direction and try to compensate so I don't have to sit there and lean on the joystick to actually get the camera to do what I want it to do. So that basically is the way it's set up, but
but completely unconventional from what you would typically expect from TV broadcast, TV reporter out with a camera, what used to be on their shoulder, but now is primarily handheld.
Yeah, absolutely. And half of my other job is running cameras for either mostly sports broadcasts. And most of the time you either have a camera on your shoulder or you are physically holding the thing that you're shooting with. So it is very different to have a control panel that is controlling a thing that is attached to a moving vehicle.
Right.
So
now you're seeing a lot of activity. You're seeing news as it breaks. And you really are, both of you, are the first two to see many of these news activities as they're breaking, whether it's weather, whether it's a sporting event, or perhaps something maybe a little more exciting like a police chase, which everybody likes to watch. There's entertainment value to that too, let's admit it. But you have to keep your eye on the ball. In other words, you got to stay focused on the job, the task at hand. And yet there may be something going on below you that's so exciting that you might perhaps be tempted to sort of take a peek and say, you know what, I just want to enjoy this as somebody who's consuming the news. Are you able to? Obviously you are, but tell me about how you separate those two things, about staying professional and making sure that you're on task. Either of you is fine.
Yeah. I think that most of the time whenever I'm on site, the way our helicopter setup usually is that Gregg will typically put things our location that we're shooting outside of his window. So it's on the opposite side of the aircraft from me. So I typically can't look out the window and see what we're looking at. So I see a lot of things through the camera lens itself.
Yeah.
But it is kind of challenging sometimes because there are a lot of things that are very interesting to look at. And the other part of it is, when you cover live breaking news, sometimes things are a little bit either messy or controversial, and you don't necessarily want to put that on TV. So that's, something that we both work together to make sure that we don't do, which for the most part isn't a problem. When we're live on air, then that becomes something that we have to pay attention to.
Right, no doubt about it. We're visiting today with Gregg Bourdon and Paul Stokes. They're with the 41 Action News SkyTracker and KMO-TV Chopper. And you're listening to Kearney Live. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Thank you. We appreciate the support of local underwriters like these fine businesses.
Kearney Trust Company is uniquely Kearney. They opened their doors in 1882 and have been financing goals and dreams ever since. Kearney Trust has a team of experienced lenders and a qualified staff to assist you with all of your financial needs. Your success is their priority. Whether you're looking for traditional checking and savings services, or you need cash management, mobile banking, mortgage, or lending services, Kearney Trust will provide you and your business with the resources you need to succeed. Information, speed, and convenience are all valuable commodities in our fast-paced world. For Kearney Trust Company, technology is an addition to, not a replacement for the personal banking relationship they like to have with their customers. The people of Kearney Trust Company focus on and try to fit the needs of all their customers. Kearney Trust Company is your partner for success with two convenient locations in Kearney at 310 West 92 Highway and 701 Watson Drive in Price Chopper. The phone number is 816-628-6666. Kearney Trust Company. Banking you can trust. Member FDIC.
And welcome back to Kearney Live. We're visiting today with Gregg Bourdon and Paul Stokes, and they are with, in fact, anybody who's in Kearney, you may have noticed there's a great big helicopter parked out in front of the building today. And they are from the 41 Action News SkyTracker and the KMO-TV Chopper. And I think we got some video. We're back. I know that's the way it goes from time to time. We got a lot of moving parts in here, but thank you, Brian, for all that you do. That's a lot of hard work, a lot of things going on over there in front of yourself. And Gregg, I wanted to follow up a little bit. You and I were just visiting, just briefly off the air. Look, you're a pilot, and pilots know that the first thing they have to do is fly the aircraft. Meantime, you indicated to me that there are a number of other things going on around you as you're trying to record and photograph these events. Talk a little bit about all of the things that you hear in your headset.
So Jim will be familiar with this. There's a thing called aircrew coordination training. It's done in the airlines, and we have a version of it in what we do. Our operations are considered Part 91. We're typically dealing with anywhere from 4, 5, or 6 voices in our head. In a situation where we're out doing a big news event, it's going to be live. It's going to be during our broadcast. So we're dealing with 2 TV stations that potentially are running this live breaking news. We're dealing with the producers from both stations. We're dealing with the news desks from both stations. We're potentially dealing with engineering. If we have a problem with engineering, you guys know how that goes. We're dealing with potentially other aircraft that are in the area. So there might be the Kansas City Police Department helicopter,
right,
if it's a crime scene. If it's in proximity to one of the Kansas City airports, the downtown airport, the international airport, we may be talking to the control tower. So it's fascinating the number of voices we're dealing with, and of course, just each other. A lot of what we do almost turns into a dance. We know how the other guy's going to do a certain thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can anticipate what Paul's going to do. He's going to anticipate what I'm going to do.
Right.
So a lot of that we can do nonverbal. But the way we're set up is Paul's priority is the broadcast, and my priority is the aircraft,
right,
and flying it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how we sort of set up those parameters for who's going to do what.
Right. Jim, I thought you said.
Well, I was watching because there was some video that was just up while you were talking.
Oh, cool.
Of some of the storm chasing you were doing, and I know Brian's trying to get some of that video up. But what one of the questions that I see, and I see a lot of people when you guys are up doing video, we'll talk about the storms because that's what they had the video up. You're not as close as it looks, because it looks like on some of these tornadoes
right
and what, like you're like getting ready to sucked in. And as
right,
much as you'd like to be Dorothy from Twister, talk about how far away you guys really are and what you're really doing there. Because I realize that the safety of the aircraft is paramount. Well,
right,
your safety is paramount, then the aircraft, and then on and on. But talk about, how you guys do that as far as distance and what you're doing.
All right. So the video that Brian was running is the recent tornado that came through, most notably the Lawrence-Linwood area in Kansas, and then ultimately ended up here in Kearney,
right,
with some damage mostly on the north side of town. So we followed that storm from where it was down in Osage City. So a lot of people, of course, were following that on Channel 5 or Channel 41. And we can, that tornado was a little bit challenging for us to shoot and track because everybody may remember it was mostly rain wrapped. Mm-hmm. And so it was hard to get definition of where it was. Paul is an expert with the camera, and he can get as good a picture as possible and from a distance. There's a lot of zoom capability on that camera. And so, typically we'll be anywhere from 5 to 10 miles away. Probably 10's a little bit long, but we try to stay far enough away so that when Paul's looking at it and he's giving people an idea of where this thing is and where it's going,
right,
you can have some context. If you're too close to it, you're not going to have that context.
Right.
So we had, and I think Brian can pull it up here in a minute. There's one video of, I think it was the tornado was completely rain wrapped, if I remember right.
Most of the time.
Yeah. So that makes it much more challenging for you guys as, trying to see it. And, I guess because you can't tell the tornado's in there, I guess you're actually getting the information from the studio. Right. And they're telling you, hey, there's a tornado in that. And you're just pointing at that direction or that image or whatever.
Yeah. We're listening to our meteorologists reporting on it,
right,
and actually our guys on the ground too. I think, in fact, Brett Anthony was one of them that was real close to it.
And I think the video that's up now is the rain wrap. Isn't that the rain wrap?
Yes.
So you can see where the rain's coming down.
Yeah.
By the way, this is historical video. Just
Yeah.
in case anybody's wondering, as they see the tornado warning on the
this isn't going on right now.
Yeah,
so if you're looking out your window and going, "Where is that?"
It's a beautiful sunny day.
Yeah, but that's a beautiful rain wrap picture. It shows you how dangerous these tornadoes are because you can't really see the tornado in there.
There's a good shot of that. You can see the edge of the helicopter there.
Well, look at that one.
Yep.
That's old. Trying to keep Mike up to speed.
Well, I'm looking.
He's looking at four different monitors in here.
There's a couple of feeds in here. In any case, it is fascinating to see.
But so you guys were saying this is the tornado that actually came through Liberty later, or Kearney later.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, went through Kearney and then through Excelsior.
Wow.
A little bit later. But yeah, this is whenever it was going through Kansas.
Now, one would think that you would be a bit foolhardy to take an aircraft anywhere near 5 miles or not.
We hear that a lot.
Exactly. And yet you obviously know what you're doing. I mean, at what point do you know, okay, I need to get the heck away from this? I realize you've got other people telling you that this is the direction of the storm, and presumably there's ways around this. Talk about that a little bit.
Like most things in life, you always want to have a plan B.
Yeah.
Well, in flying helicopters, it's always true. When you're tracking tornadoes, that's really, really true. So we always have the option to get away from it. There's been a couple of times we've been out chasing, and the storm has kind of encircled us. A couple of times we've had to land because of that.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of a helicopter is we find a nice place to land, and we do that.
Right.
But for
in
the
an
most part,
it's a little more challenging.
Right.
Yeah, in an airliner, maybe not. But that's why we keep our distance. We keep it safe. Like I said, Paul's able to get great pictures of it from a distance. We're fine.
Right.
Which, I'll say too, as a passenger in the back of the helicopter, it's actually way smoother storm chasing than you would think it is.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, you'd imagine us just bouncing around,
right?
Like just rattling around in there, but it's actually pretty smooth and pretty calm
because you're away from the action, where the weather action is further away from you, and you're in presumably then calm air.
Right. Yeah. And like Greg was saying earlier, if you're too close to it, like I can always zoom in to a storm and we can get closer to it, with the camera's capability. But if we're too close to it, I can't zoom out further than, where we are.
Yeah.
To actually see the size of the storm. So, I mean, if we were in it, it might be more dramatic for, the viewer because we'd be bouncing around all over the place. But that's not the goal.
But the camera also stabilizes quite a bit. So
absolutely,
you guys could really be bouncing around, and the general public wouldn't really know it.
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to see it a little bit if I had my hands on the controls and I'm bouncing everywhere. Then I might bounce the controls a little bit too. But as far as the camera goes itself, it's really stabilized. So I mean, you wouldn't be able to see how much the aircraft is moving from just looking at the video.
So one of the things you talked about a little bit, Greg, was the coordination between the two of you. And I think that would be even more imperative. And I don't know, Brian, if you have some of the video from the other action stuff, we'll call it. He's working on it. But that crew coordination between you guys talking to each other about here's what I need to see or here's what I'm looking for. And I think a lot of people don't realize the part that you mentioned. You're on opposite sides of the helicopter. So you're on what would be the right side and you're on the left if you're facing forward.
I'm in the front, he's in the back.
Right.
If you think of it like a car, Greg would be in the front passenger seat on the right side and I would be in the back left passenger side.
And so we'll take a little sidestep while Brian's looking for video, because I've heard a lot of people ask this before. Why in a helicopter?
Right.
I know the answer.
Oh,
but
I'm
not going to give it up.
Why is it the right-hand
Why
seat?
is it? Yeah, the pilot sits on the right side of a helicopter, and then generally in an airplane, if you're by yourself, you're on the left. But
so which is your working hand generally in the airplane when you're flying? Which is doing all the work?
Well, for me, because I sit on the same side you do, because in the airlines there's two of us, so that's a false question. However, I believe what you're getting at is you would use the right hand for your thrust levers or throttle or however you want to work it, and your left hand would control the yoke
Most
stick.
of your flying.
Right, correct.
Yeah. So in an airplane, mostly working with your left hand to fly it, mostly working with your right hand to control power and radios and that sort of thing. Opposite in a helicopter. Most of the work is being done to fly it with your right hand because we have a stick, a cyclic stick that's, in center. And then your left hand is for power, which is your collective control. And then use your left hand for radios and that sort of thing. So that's your backup.
Right. You've obviously have a lot of flying experience. When did you begin flying? When did you decide, you know what, I'd like to get a pilot license and bring you to where you are today?
So I basically learned in the Army. Well, I was an enlisted guy in the Army. Before I was a pilot, I had the opportunity to go up as an observer in an airplane. And that was this, clarion moment where I was like, this is what I want to do. So I was probably 19 years old at the time. I put in for Army flight school, got accepted, went to Fort Rucker, Alabama. Came back from that, served for about 6 years active duty as a Army aviator. And then when I finished that, I moved to North Carolina, picked up a position at the University of North Carolina flying for the hospital. I kind of thought I'd died and gone to heaven. It was an amazing job. It was a real privilege to work there. But one thing about helicopter flying is they're pretty much all driven by contracts. So contracts come and go. Like with a lot of things like construction and whatnot.
Right.
So interestingly, we lost a contract in North Carolina. Our competitors across town, which was actually Duke University, they called me up and said, hey, how quick can you get to Kansas City? Because we are putting together a flight program for the Kansas City Life Flight program and the Research Eagle program. And so when they put that together, that's when I came here in 1996. And I thought I'd be here for about 3 to 6 months. And I've been here for 23 years. So that's another story. But that's when I came to Kansas City. I flew for Life Flight Eagle for about 5 years.
Very good. When did you shift over from a fixed wing aircraft to a helicopter?
So pretty quick. Well, I was an enlisted guy. I learned how to fly airplanes. Did that, the Army flying, the post flying school. So it's basically as a civilian, but on a military base, if that makes sense. And then pretty quickly I put in for Army helicopter training, and then I've pretty much been flying helicopters ever since.
Very cool. How was that transition going from fixed wing to a helicopter?
It's so long ago, I don't remember. I get that question a lot. People say, how hard is it to go from airplane to helicopter or back? To me, it's pretty seamless. I occasionally get to fly an airplane now, but not too often.
That brings up a funny story, and I'm going to go ahead and tell it myself. So Greg and I were out, it's been several years ago now. I don't even remember how many years ago, but we had an airplane we were flying together. And it was new to both of us, and so
this a tail dragger?
Yeah, it was.
I got
it
you.
still is.
I got you.
And Greg goes, well, we're flying around, and Greg goes, hey, do you mind if I fly for a minute? And I was like, sure. That was a big mistake. So. No, just kidding. We were landing, and tail draggers by nature,
are funny.
Right?
Yes.
So by nature, in a tail dragger, because of the way the CG is, the center of gravity. What happens is the tail wants to be in front of you. It's not, like a traditional
when you're
nose
landing.
wheel. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, we were trying to get used to this plane and everything else. It's just, Greg couldn't hear over me screaming. I can tell you that right now.
So speaking of funny stories, Jim and I actually met in a helicopter.
Yes, we did. And I forgot about
years.
This until, Greg brought it up.
Do tell.
I forgot all about
He was
this.
actually auditioning to be the SkyFox reporter. So a lot of people are probably familiar with Nick Vassos as the SkyFox reporter back in the day. Well, when that was being put together, Jim Dickerson, who was described to me as some guy from the police department, is coming down to audition in SkyFox. So like, all right, well, this should be interesting.
Right.
And so Jim and I went out and spent about an hour flying around and giving them a chance to see how he would do. So, yeah.
And so if any of you are wondering, how did that go? Well, Nick Vassos is the guy that you saw for a long time afterwards.
He got the job.
He did.
Yeah.
Actually, I can't even remember how I got sent there to do that. But I kind of got the feeling that it was a weird deal. I kind of got the feeling Nick had already gotten the job, and then I got sent there later.
I don't think that's true.
So Nick was just that much better? Is that what you're saying?
I'm going to say Jim was a real contender on that one. Yes.
So, but no, that's funny because I completely forgot that's how we first met.
That was fun.
So we have a text, and I think this is from Meredith. And
I thought it was going to be from Nick Vassos.
Well, exactly. yeah. We're going to diss him on the air here. And Meredith asks us, do you have any advice for parents whose kids hope to be pilots someday? She says that her 8-year-old James wants to be a helicopter pilot when he grows up. And she'd love to hear what you've got to say about that.
Helicopter flying is expensive.
Flying's expensive. I know. I found out.
Yes. I was fortunate. I learned in the Army. So that was how I got my start. There is actually a helicopter school right near Kearney, over at the Midwest National Airport. Some people know as the Clay County Airport. Heartland Helicopters is over there, and I think they do offer familiarization flights.
Right.
So there's an opportunity to stop by the airport and chat with those guys. Yeah.
Well, I think the military is a great option. I think we've talked about it before. I think the military is a great option for anybody that, if you want to go to college, because guess what? They will help you pay for your college. And there are tons of things you can learn in the military above and beyond aviation. But I think that's a terrific response to Meredith's question. We're visiting today with Gregg Bourdon and Paul Stokes, and we're talking about helicopters and flying and all kinds of fun things. We've got a helicopter parked out in front of the studio today. It's pretty cool. You're listening to Kearney Live. Stay with us through this short break. We'll be right back.
Making our programming possible on KPGZ are these fine underwriters.
Kearney Trust Company is uniquely Kearney. They opened their doors in 1882 and have been financing goals and dreams ever since. Kearney Trust has a team of experienced lenders and a qualified staff to assist you with all of your financial needs. Your success is their priority. Whether you're looking for traditional checking and savings services, or you need cash management, mobile banking, mortgage, or lending services, Kearney Trust will provide you and your business with the resources you need to succeed. Information, speed, and convenience are all valuable commodities in our fast-paced world. For Kearney Trust Company, technology is an addition to, not a replacement for the personal banking relationship they like to have with their customers. The people of Kearney Trust Company focus on and try to fit the needs of all their customers. Kearney Trust Company is your partner for success with 2 convenient locations in Kearney at 310 West 92 Highway and 701 Watson Drive in Price Chopper. The phone number is 816-628-6666. Kearney Trust Company. Banking you can trust. Member FDIC.
And welcome back to Kearney Live. I'm your host, Mike Davis, along with Jim Dickerson, and we have Gregg Bourdon and Paul Stokes in studio with us today. And 41 Action News SkyTracker KMO-TV Chopper is parked out in front of the building today because these two gentlemen flew it right up to see us today. We're glad you're here. And Gregg, you and I were talking off the air about a couple of things that some experiences you've had that were particularly memorable, and tell the audience what you and I were talking about just recently.
The thing about a helicopter is it's so dynamic. Right. And we had a case back in 2017. In fact, we were just about to go home. It was right at the end of the day, and we got a call to go check on a carjacking over in Kansas City, Kansas. Mm-hmm. We thought it was kind of a plain vanilla carjacking. We do those from time to time. Most of the times we don't really find much. Right. But after we launched, we realized that KCK police chief had put out pretty quick that hey, this isn't just a carjack, and there was a little girl in the back seat. And most likely the carjackers weren't even aware of it. Now, most of the time, bad guys, and Jim can probably attest to this, if they carjack a car and there's a child in the back, there's a good chance that they're going to just stop somewhere and get out and run. For whatever reason, these guys decided to go out into Wyandotte County and abandon the car in the middle of nowhere. So KCK police put in a request to have us go out and search in that area. It just so happened at that time the KCPD helicopter wasn't available. Kansas Highway Patrol was not available with either one of their helicopters. So we started a grid search. We usually have a kind of a system set up. Police department was able to give us at least an idea of where the vehicle was, only because they were getting some ping data from a cell phone that happened to be in the car.
Oh, wow.
So we searched and searched and searched. It's starting to get dark. We're getting a little nervous about it. We're flying down a road, low level. And I told the photographer at the time, a fellow named James, was actually from Liberty.
James Moore.
Yeah, James Moore. I said, hey, James, look at that car over there. And we're looking for a silver Ford, a small silver Ford. I think it was an Escort. And so he brought the camera over to the left side of the aircraft, zoomed in on it, and sure enough, there's a little girl in the back seat.
Oh, my goodness.
So, of course, we called our dispatch. They talked to KCK police, and they basically told them, hey, find the SkyTracker helicopter, because they could see us flying. We've been maneuvering out there with them.
Right.
And they just started all heading towards us, and then we were able to guide them and pick up the little girl.
Wow.
So we actually, Channel
you won
41.
an award for that, didn't you?
Yeah, Channel 41 actually got an Emmy for that. Yep.
Outstanding. Wow. You love a story that ends like that. Well, you hate that the story begins, but, if it's going to happen, man, that's the way you want it to unfold. Yep. Yeah. Wow. Nicely done. Yeah,
that was, one of those days where you're really pumped. I mean, we go out and cover a lot of bad news. I mean, let's face it, most of what we do is bad news. We just had a couple of fatality things that we did just the other day that, that's very typical for what we do. So to go out and be that big a part of a story of bringing that little girl home, that was huge.
Right. Paul, you were shaking your head, yes, when Gregg mentioned that you do cover some stories that are they're kind of tough to see, and I think for anybody to see. I wonder, you think of first responders and folks that are out there, the sort of PTSD, the sort of the thing that you sometimes can't unsee, horrible things. Does that ever happen with you guys, that maybe you've seen something that you just kind of can't get out of your head? I mean, and maybe you need to just get away from it for a while. Does that happen to you guys?
I think to a point, you're kind of prepared for what you are about to see or what you could see. So like what Gregg was talking about, when we do launch the helicopter, we're given like a location and what something is. So a lot of times when we get sent to something, it's, told to you it's a fatality accident at whatever intersection. So you kind of have in your head what that is before you're going to get there, or it's a homicide scene at whatever. So like you kind of are a little bit prepared for it.
Right.
But I mean, in that same regard, it is real life, it's stuff that happens all the time that most people don't see on a daily basis.
Exactly.
So, I mean, yes, there is that element to it where it's, it's something that's, it is like you're pulling back the curtain a little bit on reality and seeing the things that people don't typically see.
Right.
But I wouldn't say necessarily that I've had any kind of like post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
I mean, there are scenes in particular that we have covered that still stick with me, and I think about them, and they have more impacted my life in a way of, it makes me appreciate the thing, just normal life. I mean, because a lot of the stuff that we do, like fatality accidents, you could be driving down the road and car wreck that isn't your fault, and it could end your life, and it's kind of one of those things that it more makes my life more important and makes me appreciate my family and the small things a lot more.
Right.
And
that by seeing it, you recognize that obviously that it is reality. To many of us, it's news.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a terrific answer. Yeah. That's man, hats off to you guys for the hard work that you do and getting out there and actually helping law enforcement to a large extent, Greg. I mean,
as much as we can, if we can.
Are you said you hear them in your headset? Now, do they ever talk directly to you?
We don't. We don't have a way of speaking to them. But, those frequencies are very controlled, so we typically have to go through our dispatch to get to them. Now, we do talk to the Kansas City Police Department helicopter, and we have a real good relationship with them.
Right.
When they're doing a police chase or something like that,
because you're on an aviation frequency.
We're on aviation frequency,
yeah.
So we're real careful to typically stay above them.
I see.
We just stay out of their way, basically.
Right. Jim, you got something there?
No. Well, what I was going to say is, how do they generally? What you obviously don't do any shooting at night. So what are your general? Well, as a rule. So I have two questions. I have a primary and a follow-up. I believe that's the way to say that. The first question is, why is everybody shaking their head?
I'm just laughing at you, not with you.
It's not unusual. So generally, when do you work? When are you guys up? I mean, because obviously you don't fly around wasting thousands of gallons of fuel. Just hoping.
Good point. This doesn't come cheap.
But how do you guys generally work? Because you talked about getting called out and that sort of thing. So how do you guys generally work that as far as when you work and that sort of thing?
As far as a call, it always comes from the desk. So either a TV station will call us up. They, as you can imagine, monitor everything that's going on in the metro. So that's usually how we find out about something.
Right.
Once in a great while, we'll hear it from, a colleague or a friend or whatever that happens along on something. But 99% of the time comes from the desk, and then we just launch from the downtown airport. And again, being downtown, we're right in the middle of everything, and we get the things pretty quick. But it's kind of like being at a fire station. We're sitting there waiting for the tones to go off, and we jump in our rig and off we go.
Just like that. Wow.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if your question was more operationally, we're at the downtown airport Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 6:30 every week. And then on the weekends we have somebody on call, and then from midnight to the beginning of shift and from the end of the shift to midnight, again, there's always somebody on call.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So if anything does
Just in
happen,
case,
one of the news stations can get a hold of us and still send us to things, even if we're not at the downtown airport.
So you're on call, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So the follow-up to that is, and I think a lot of people will appreciate this question. Channel, you guys used to do great aerial coverage of high school football, and we have a great high school football season coming up here, and it actually starts on Friday.
Yeah, I like where this is going.
I know the answer, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. Do you still do the aerial coverage of high school football? And I have a follow-up.
Regrettably, we don't. I think it's been about 5 or 6 seasons now since we've done high school football, and we did it for years. We were talking about that earlier. Bulldog football was one of our favorites.
Nice.
We loved coming up to Kearney, such a great town.
Right.
We got a warm reception from the families out there. People would come over and look at the helicopter and ask us about it. So, yeah, we missed that. I don't think Friday Night Football Patrol is coming back. I think the stations have moved in another direction.
Sure.
But we really enjoyed that. That was great.
So what would it take to get Friday Night Football back? And maybe... Okay, so I'm going to be honest. We can't afford to paint one side of the helicopter, but maybe if we were to put a sticker on a window,
a 102.7 FM sticker.
Yeah, could we get some?
We'll take a sticker with us.
Could we get?
And we can flash it in front of one of the talent cameras or something.
Yeah, I was kind of looking for a little Friday Night Football coverage when we do the Bulldog Radio Network, which. By the way, happens to be up above. If you can switch to their camera, look right up above them. Yeah, the Bulldog Radio Network.
That would be our worldwide network of 102.7 FM sports broadcasters.
Yes. And that would be great to add a helicopter to that coverage.
Well, we looked at the stadium on the way in today.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of folks noticed that we did do a flyby of the downtown area, and man, does it look great.
Indeed, it does.
Wow, looks a heck of a lot better than whenever I was still in school. Like,
right?
They've done a lot of great work to it.
Indeed, they have, and in fact, the press box has been improved over and above. I think Brian got hit in the backside, let's say, by the door last year any number of times. It was so crowded in there, and a lot of the coaching staff had to go through our spot to get up above where they could do their coaching and filming of the game. Up above. I would mention that Amy Laughlin took a really nice picture. I saw it on Facebook this morning. I asked her, and she gave me permission to steal that photo, which I may just do. But for those of you that know Amy, look at her Facebook page. You'll see a really nice image of the new stadium. Really good shot of it. No people there yet, but we're going to change that in a couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be packed on Fridays.
Yeah.
So. But any chance of you guys going back and doing that, or is that they had to have a sponsor for that, didn't they? Like I think was it Price Chopper?
Hy-Vee played a pretty big role in that for quite a few years. But yeah, we don't have a sponsor for it now, so I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, if anybody wants to step up and sponsor that, we'd be glad to stick our sticker right there on the side of the helicopter. Or if you want to really go all out, we can paint probably the tail rotor or something like that.
Or we could put 2 stickers on there.
Yeah, we'll put a sticker
two for
on both
one.
sides.
Yeah.
We're going to get in a lot of trouble for this, aren't we?
Well, I don't see why we would. But, indeed, I think it's really cool that you're involved in so many things in the community as you're flying that helicopter around. I think it's a terrific, it is community outreach for both stations. Let me make sure I get this right. 41 Action News and KCTV5. They both generate a lot of community interest, obviously. And I see the logo on your shirt there, Greg.
Yeah.
And, it really is, while you're performing a very important service, I think, for the community and all the folks who are watching the news, it serves as a public interest. And so they gain, some publicity for it as well. So,
sure. Before we go, what's your favorite? What's your favorite? We'll split it up, one for each of you. What's the favorite thing you've done? Your favorite story, or the thing that was most fun, or the thing that you'd say, "Man, we did this one thing that one time."
Well, I'm going to say that little girl we found at KCK is going to win that question. But the thing that we do that people are fascinated by, and I think Mike mentioned earlier, people just come to our Facebook or our broadcast, is police pursuits. I mean, they are the craziest thing. I mean, people are just drawn into those. So, I mean, that's the big one.
Greg may not say it first, but police pursuits are definitely his favorite thing. We'll be out flying around, and every now and then he's like, "Man, it'd be a great time for a police chase." I will say that police chases are really fun, and they're probably one of the more dynamic things we do, because there's so much going on, and they change direction and all over the place, and you never know what's going to happen. But for me, absolutely, hands down, storm chasing is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I used to grow up with my parents, sitting on the front porch watching storms roll in.
Right.
So being able to fly alongside of a storm as it drops hail or lightning around,
no doubt about it.
It's a different experience, and it's a different perspective on a storm than anybody will ever have unless you fly next to one.
The funny thing about that is, I was thinking earlier, is there ever a reason why, because of weather, perhaps, is there ever weather so bad that you can't take off in the helicopter? And I'm thinking, no, that's probably not true, because there you are flying into a storm.
Ice, that's about,
okay.
Freezing rain and ice, that's about it.
Ice, and then, visibility and cloud cover. So, I mean, in spite of the fact we can go out and look at a tornado, and Jim will tell you, being an airline guy, there's also parameters for ceiling and visibility, and then like Paul said, ice will definitely keep us on the ground.
Yeah, and you have to be torn though to a degree, because I know when you're looking out and you see like a nice big wall cloud and all that, and you're wanting, in the back of your mind, you're wanting to get that beautiful video shot of the tornado dropping out, but at the same time, you don't want it to happen over a community. You want it to be out in a farm field or something where nobody is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So you're
we saw that
torn there. Yeah,
and we saw that in Linwood this year, because we had the opportunity to, track that storm, watch it come all the way up from I think it was down Osage City, and we picked it up, and then after it went by, looking at the damage in Linwood. And I mean, that was just
devastating, right?
Devastating.
Yeah.
And what was interesting about that one, if I recall, they went back and looked at the track of that storm and then the one from 2004, was it? Is that right? And they were nearly identical. It was really weird.
Yeah, very similar.
I thought that was really kind of interesting. If you what were you, like 6?
In 2004, I would have been 14.
Okay,
so,
14. But that storm, I remember that one. And then this one took a really, really similar track to it, which was really interesting.
Now, the one back in 2004 was on the ground a lot more.
Correct.
This one it picked up and missed most of the metro until it got actually up to the Kearney area and then dropped back down.
Yeah. Wow.
Good deal there. So, well, anything else you want to share with us?
Thank you for having us. What a beautiful day in Kearney. I was asking when I landed, is this how it is in Kearney every day?
Every day is a beautiful day in Kearney.
Gorgeous.
Is this heaven? No, this is Kearney. Right? Isn't that wonderful?
Very
Brian, how much time?
reference.
Yep, indeed. Brian, are we about ready to, I think we're
I'm
closing out here in a minute.
We'll come back in just a minute because we've got some breaking news from the Clay County Commissioners meeting. For those of you who've been following, and I know we had Jerry Nolte on last week, they just voted on that annex. It was a 2-1 vote. Jerry Nolte was the dissenting vote to approve the land annex. So there's a lot of money, and we'll get some more details for that and get you back because that's breaking news, but we'll get that to you.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's inside, so SkyTracker can't do it, but we'll get it for you anyway.
Thanks for being with us, guys. Thanks to everyone for listening to 102.7 FM, and this is Kearney Live. We're on every Wednesday at noon. See us again next week. We'll see you again next week. Thanks so much for being with us.